Flash of Love. Midlife in Aura Cove, Book 6. Written by Blair Bryan. Narrated by C.J. Locks. 1.
By the power vested in me, by the great state of Nevada,
drawled a southern twang from the lips of a chubby Elvis, startling Katie from her spiraling thoughts. She'd barely registered a word from Frankie and Harry's quickie wedding ceremony after being introduced to Harry's mother Rose a few minutes prior. With one brief brush, Karma delivered her next unexpected assignment. Katie's latest rebalance involved finding Harry's twin sister, Jessica, who'd been abducted when they were only 7. The delightfully tacky wedding chapel, where they'd all gathered on the 1st of April, was wedged between an In-N-Out burger and a pawn shop a few blocks off the Las Vegas Strip. Inside, the center aisle had been lined in green astroturf, and a collection of dusty silk flowers balanced precariously from a rickety brass arch behind a polyester and rhinestone-clad Elvis. As the maid of honor, Katie stood next to Frankie, flicking tense glances at the few white chairs scattered in haphazard rows where Rose and Brody sat. She was briefly distracted by Brody, who looked dashing in his suit, even more attractive when he grinned as the couple exchanged vows. She sensed him getting caught up in their excitement instead of focusing only on his own, a quality she found irresistible. Katie felt a tingle as his puppy dog eyes leveled on hers, full of questions, yet content and patient. Their bond was multifaceted and extremely complicated as Brody navigated his new life after Zoya freed him from his canine body. If Katie was being honest with herself, his betrayal still stung, though not as much now that she understood his reasons. He had been a constant companion during the upheaval of her life since her awakening, and with Zoya's intervention, she could feel a shift happening in her heart regarding his role in her life. It was equal parts thrilling and terrifying to let someone in, especially someone with whom she'd had so much history.
"You may now kiss."
Elvis's words were cut off as Harry took matters into his own hands, dramatically sweeping Frankie into his arms and dipping her to the ground before planting an enthusiastic kiss on her lips. A raucous EDM rendition of The Wedding March pulsed through crackling speakers, drowning out the smattering of applause. It vibrated off every surface of the chapel as an exuberant light show transformed the space into a kaleidoscope of dancing colors. On cue, 2 older women adorned with sequined jackets and jaunty pillbox hats, their lips painted a garish red, materialized on either side of the couple. With the precision of trained marksmen, they launched a full-scale floral assault at Frankie and Harry, smacking them in the face with silk flowers that fluttered down like confetti. Several petals clung to Frankie's bare skin as the photographer stepped forward to snap the first photos of the newly married couple. Strobe-like flashes from the relentless light show punctuated each snap of his camera, adding to the dizzying spectacle. Frankie and Harry, intoxicated with joy and adrenaline, cheesed to the camera with exaggerated grins and playful poses, their laughter echoing above the booming music. Katie chuckled as she watched, her senses overwhelmed by the outrageous onslaught. The flashing lights granted brief, merciful blips of darkness, nestled between vivid glimpses of the newlyweds' infatuation with each other. One moment awkwardly etched itself into her memory. Harry's hands cupped Frankie's bottom with such wild abandon, it caused Katie's cheeks to flame with embarrassment. She glanced away, blinking several times to clear the spots in her vision before her gaze flitted over to Brody, who also appeared to be biting back an amused chuckle. Amid scattered applause and whoops of encouragement, Frankie and Harry finally tore themselves away from each other before strutting back down the astroturf, out of the chapel, and into the warm sunshine. A few seconds later, Harry's mother, Rose, hopped up and rushed out to join them. Katie hung back for a few minutes, feeling eyes boring into her. She glanced over her shoulder to see Brody studying her. He offered a tentative smile as he took a step closer.
"That was quite the spectacle,"
he mused, opening up the conversation. "I think I need to bleach my eyes," Katie laughed. "But you have to admit, that was Frankie to a T. She's the only person I've ever met who was bold enough to get married on April Fool's Day."
"It was,"
Brody agreed.
"Can you believe she's someone's wife? Never thought I'd live to see the day."
"It's going to take a minute to settle in, I think. But she's over the moon, and Harry is the kind of stand-up guy she deserves."
"I could be that for you."
She heard his thought and shook her head to clear it. "You need to slow your roll, mister. You know I can hear you." Brody's cheeks pinked up, embarrassed from the exposure of his innermost feelings. "Besides, I need to focus. My next assignment has arrived already."
"What?"
A crease wrinkled Brody's forehead.
"Let me guess. Elvis?"
"No. Harry's sister, Jessica." When I hugged Rose, an overpowering scent of sage filled my nostrils, and I heard a little girl crying. I also felt the soft fur of a puppy. The visions from Karma always amazed Katie. With each assignment, they seemed to increase in intensity and were becoming more three-dimensional, registering on all of her senses.
"Soft fur. Are you sure you aren't projecting your deep attraction and undying love for me into your visions?"
He batted his long eyelashes at her, hamming it up. Katie snickered and rolled her eyes. "Everything isn't always about you."
"It was only a joke,"
he answered, holding up both of his hands and grinning at her. His response was infuriatingly adorable, and she felt her resolve waver as he cleared his throat.
"But, in all seriousness, thank you for confiding in me. How can I help?"
"Not sure yet," Katie breathed out. "Right now, we need more information. I'll have to see what I can learn from Rose at dinner." "Chop, chop!" Frankie interrupted, bellowing from the doorway. "Those all-you-can-eat crab legs are not going to eat themselves." Katie laughed. "You heard the woman."
"Along with the rest of the greater Las Vegas area,"
Brody muttered under his breath, and followed Katie out of the chapel. He pressed his palm gently to her lower back to guide her back down the aisle, and Katie brushed it away, preferring to make her way on her own. He smirked in response to her fierce, independent streak, a recent development since her awakening, and tucked his hands behind his back. At the restaurant, Katie purposefully chose the seat closest to Rose, who was fishing her reading glasses out of her sequined handbag. She smiled at Katie as a server came over to the table holding 2 bottles of champagne. Harry stood and peeled the foil off the top of one of them, easing the cork out of the opening. The loud pop made Frankie cheer, and Harry grin as he filled the flutes, first offering one to his new wife, then another to his mother, before handing the bottle to a member of the waitstaff, who promptly filled the rest of the flutes and passed them around the table. Harry reached down and offered Frankie a hand to pull her up, letting his hand settle easily on her waist. Turning to the guests at the table, he beamed.
"Thank you for celebrating with us on the best day of our lives."
He raised his glass and turned toward Frankie.
"And thank you for marrying me. Life is exceptionally sweeter when you marry your best friend."
He planted a kiss on her mouth before turning toward his mother.
"I love having the 2 women I love most in the world gathered together, and hope, someday soon, Jessica will join us."
Rose brushed away a tear that tracked down her cheek and offered her son a sweet smile. "I hope you're right. Rose said, getting to her feet and raising her glass to the happy couple. "Welcome to the family, Frankie. It is obvious you make Harrison so unbelievably happy. Congratulations, and I love you both." She sat down and their server returned with a stack of white plates and a basket filled with black fabric napkins wrapped around silverware.
"You may make your way to the buffet any time you wish."
"Don't have to tell me twice," Frankie blurted, as she stood and pulled her husband towards steaming trays of crab legs lit by overhead spotlights. Katie took the opportunity to talk to Rose. On her other side, Brody leaned in, waiting for Katie to lead the exchange. "I'm so thrilled you made it in time for the wedding." "I wouldn't have missed it for the world," Rose said with a sad smile. "That boy has always been the apple of my eye, especially since—" Her words trailed off, and she averted her eyes. "I'm so sorry," Katie empathized. "I can't imagine what it was like to lose a child so young." "It was a nightmare," Rose admitted sadly, biting her bottom lip, lost in thought. "Days like today are especially hard. We both miss her so much." Her eyes misted over as she tried to keep her emotions in check. Rose swallowed hard, then continued. "Just look at them." She pointed over at Harry, loading Frankie's plate with an obscene amount of flamingo-pink crab legs before swatting her on the butt playfully. "They are a perfect pair." She smiled, and Katie nodded in agreement. "Frankie's my best friend. I assure you, even though she's a little rough around the edges, she has a heart of gold." "Oh, I know that, dear. Besides, Harrison has always been a great judge of character, and has always known what he wants." Rose reached out to pat the back of Katie's hands. Colors intensified and swirled, and Katie felt a rush of sensation engulf her. She heard a rooster crowing in the distance, and a flush of heat rushed up her body. Pearls of sweat formed at her hairline and rolled down her neck as she gripped the textured handle of a shovel, and the scent of freshly turned earth wafted up. Just as quickly, the sensation drifted away when Rose pulled her hand back. Unfazed by Katie's reaction, her smile died on her lips as she got lost in a sad memory, breaking Katie's heart. Brody leaned behind Rose, and Katie could smell the citrus shampoo he favored as he mouthed, "Are you okay?" Katie nodded weakly as the lingering sensation dissipated, trying to reacclimate to the celebration without drawing attention to herself.
"Did you want to talk about Jessica with us? Or will that be too painful?"
Brody asked, his voice gentle, as Frankie and Harry continued down the buffet line. Rose nodded enthusiastically. "Maybe just for a moment before the newlyweds return to the table. Talking about Jessica keeps her alive." Her somber tone shifted to a sweeter one. "She was a bright light, inquisitive and loving, always helping in the kitchen. I was teaching her how to make pancakes," Rose described, remembering her daughter fondly. "Harrison was the older twin and seemed to think he was her protector. I know over the years he's blamed himself." Rose's voice softened as she recalled the details. They'd been sick, spending most of the week together in their room, but Jessica recovered more quickly and begged to go outside. She paused for a long moment as a heavy weight settled on her shoulders. "I was exhausted from the week of changing sheets and cleaning up vomit, and she kept begging. So I just gave in. So many times I've walked back through that day, wishing I'd made a different choice. I should have played a board game with her, or told her to watch something on TV instead." The guilt radiating from Rose was palpable. "You can't blame yourself," Katie empathized. "That's what my husband said before he died.
Jessica was the light of his life, and losing her devastated him. He was never the same." She paused. "When we put him in the ground, the well-wishers tried to tell me to take peace in the fact they'd be reunited in heaven. But I refused. I knew Jessica was still here." She smiled at Katie. "The bond between a mother and her child transcends life and death." "I agree," Katie nodded. "Then, when Harrison told me about the message he received from Tallulah LaRue, I rejoiced. To tell you the truth, my conviction that she was still alive was starting to waver. As I got older, the thought of leaving this world without ever seeing my daughter again crushed me. Now that there has been confirmation she's alive, I'm only more desperate to find her. I don't know if I can survive another punishing ride on the roller coaster of hope, but I can't help myself. If she's out there, we must bring her home." "How old would she be right now?" Brody asked. 48, Rose answered, then let out a heavy exhale between her teeth. 4 decades is long enough. I need to know what happened to my daughter. It haunts me." "It is," Katie acknowledged. "Why do you think she's never reached out?" "I've been over and over that in my mind," Rose said. "She was only 7 when she disappeared. It's terrifying to think about what could have happened to her. I have my darkest moments when I let myself go down those roads." She shuddered at the thought. "The truth of the matter is, every 40 seconds a child disappears in America, and our Jessica was one of them." "Oh, Rose, I am so sorry," Katie murmured. "With social media and genetic testing databases, you'd think someone would have uncovered information, or she would have come forward herself," Brody said, and Katie shot him a look to silence him. "You'd think," Rose agreed sadly. "Our family deserves closure. The waiting and wondering have been the hardest." She took a sip of champagne, closed her eyes for a long moment, and then forced a warm smile back on her face as Harry and Frankie made their way back to the table with plates piled high. "Let's get back to the celebration. It's Harrison and Frankie's big day. I don't want to ruin it." "Of course," Katie said, offering her a wide grin. She took a sip of her champagne, lost in thought and desperate to help bring closure to Harry's mother. Relying on Orden investigative techniques had only resulted in 40 years of dead ends. She was confident she'd finally be able to crack the case by leaning on her supernatural gifts. She just didn't know how.